1 second. We gotta have the thing on ourselves first. Okay, have the camera on ourselves.
Hang on. You can't even see me. There.
Hey, guys, welcome back to the cooking segment. We will be making strawberry milkshake. Ain't that right, Owen?
That is right. Okay, I can't.
You may be wondering why we're out in the cold and in the dark. We don't know either. But let's get to it. So everybody, get their straws. Owen, you have your straw?
Yeah, I have it right here.
Okay,
Can you
that's
see
good.
that?
Yep,
Yeah.
see, so we got the straw, now we have to bury it. So here's what I'm saying. You go outside, find some good snow, put it in, see, and then boom, just plop it in there. Good. With the snow, cover it all up. Like that. And then get your milk. As you can see, we have our milk. Just shake it up there. Shake. Shake. Shake the milk. Now, after we're done doing that, for a good 30 seconds.
Hang on, I gotta go.
Yeah. Pat it more. Then use the said straw. Then drink it. Like so.
Hang on. Alright, here we
It's
go.
interesting.
I'm gonna drink it now. Okay.
I already tried it. Mine tastes like some good milk.
Oh, that's nasty. Can't see what I'm doing.
Hey everyone, we are so excited to be online with you today. Thanks so much for tuning in and participating with us. My name is Ethan, I'm the youth pastor here at Lake Point Youth, and let me tell you that tonight is going to be wild. Tonight we are going to play for you the best song ever, and it's written and recorded by two of our very own Lake Point students. We're going to watch people get scared, we're going to train some dogs, we're going to kick off a brand new segment where two of our students impersonate a leader, and then we're going to talk to a baby and a toddler. It's going to be pretty crazy. Now, while all of this is happening, we need you to jump in the live chat. The very best way to make tonight as wild as ever is to be commenting in the chat with your pals and leaders. Let us know what you ate for breakfast. Jump in on the rise of the Marcus movement. Tell us about how the grass tastes in your backyard. It doesn't matter, just live in the chat the entire night. Okay, let me tell you about some exciting news. After Youth Online tonight, we are launching our very first online games night. What does that mean? What are we playing? Who's going to be there? Well, check out this video to learn more.
All right, guys, we have read what you've said, looked at some of the surveys from last week about what you have game-wise, and we've gone through a lot of very scientific, rigorous tests and processes, and we've decided that tonight we're going to be playing Among Us. So if you have it, which a lot of you do, so I'm expecting a lot of you to show up. I want a full room of backstabbing, betraying imposters tonight, having a lot of fun. That's what I'm here for. So Among Us is happening tonight. You need to be there because otherwise there's no way that you're going to be able to get revenge on Nicholas for all the things that he's been doing in the kitchen lately. So I think you need to be there.
So stick around to the end of the night. We will post a Zoom link in the chat. You're free to welcome to join and hang out with us, and we'll see you there. Take care.
I'm so excited to see everyone take down Mark and Zeke. So to quickly recap, at the end of Youth Online, be on the lookout for a Zoom link that we will send in the live chat. Click on the link, and it's going to take you to our online games night with Mark and Zeke, where the plan is to play Among Us. Now, speaking of Among Us, we have some super talented musicians among us. See what I did there? And they've been working super hard over the past little bit, and they've actually written their own song, and they recorded it for us to play for you today. This is exclusive access, a public launch of their song, and we are the first to hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Miranda and Zoe.
Wake up in the morning and thoughts of you fill my head. My heart starts racing in anticipation for you. I walk into the room where we first met, with memories flooding my head. I open the door and I see you sitting there on the shelf. Pickles, 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 what would we do without you? Pickles, 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 how could we live without you? I pop up in the jar and I take a big whiff. You taste so good that we're writing this riff, adored by people young and old. Pickles, you're worth more than gold. Pickles, 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 what would we do without you? Pickles, 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 how could we live without you? I fish you out and I take a big bite. I sink my teeth into the juicy delight. Pickles, 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 pickles.
We ate all the pickles.
Pickles, pickles, pickles. What will we do without you? Pickles, 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 pickles. Oh, hey, what's going on, guys? Sorry, just got really into their song. I mean, it's the most catchy song in the world, right? I can't wait to hear what they have in store for their next song. And if this song doesn't get an award at the Grammys, then something is wrong with the music industry. That was amazing. Thank you so much, Zoe and Miranda. All right, next up, we have a special segment where Owen and Nicholas try to scare their family members. Check it out.
Guys, it's Nicholas here. I'm gonna be scaring people in my family. So, get ready for it. Okay guys, first person we're doing, Matthew. And he wasn't scared. I'm scared of him now.
Coming soon to a home that you live in. Owen and Nicholas hiding behind a door, ready to jump out at moment's notice. Will you soil your pants? Will you scream in horror? Or will you react with force and punch them in the face? Nobody knows. But what we do know is they're coming for you. Well, not really because of COVID, but you feel the suspense, right? Okay, we've got a couple more segments today. This next one is my favorite one of the entire night, and you'll see why in just a few seconds.
Welcome to the Etta and Remy show. This is Etta Jean, and this is Remy May. Now, some of you guys might not remember us because we've been under a rock for 10 months, but that's okay. Etta, do you want to say hi? You wave? You say hello. Hi. And this is Remy. Remy was born during COVID, so you guys might not even know she exists, but she's here and she's awesome. She's 6 months old. So today we're gonna tell you about what we did at the park. When we went to the park, Etta got me a gift, a pine cone. Is this a pine cone, Etta? It was a present for Mom? Thanks so much. I love pine cones. What can you do with a pine cone, Etta? Yep, you can hit it on the table. How cool is that? In other news, at lunch today, we had some raspberry yogurt and butter pasta. Who likes that? Comment below. Also, we learned about shapes. Etta, do you like shapes?
Mommy read shapes.
Mommy read shapes? Okay, let's read shapes together. Shall we? So, oh, here. Oh yeah, you say hello. Hello everybody. Okay, let's read the shapes book. When we open the book, you see we got shapes. Let's talk about some of our favorite words that we like to say. Can you say armpit? Yeah. Oh, you found your armpit. Can you say the word armpit?
Sissy's armpit.
Sissy's armpit. That's right. Can you say dad stinky? Can you say dad stinky?
Dad stinky.
Yeah. Can you say dad tooted? Yep, now you know everything that you need to know about Pastor Ethan. He's stinky and he tooted. Cool. So that is our very exciting day. Pinecone. Would you like to introduce Lammy to everybody? Show everybody Lammy. Say, this is Lammy. Hello everybody, this is Lammy. Cool. So, have a great day.
I mean, come on. They are so cute. I don't care if I'm biased. Those two are the cutest kids you'll ever meet at Lake Point Youth Online on January 22nd, 2021. That is just a fact. Maybe one day you'll be able to meet them in person, hopefully soon, and not before they're, old enough to come to youth. All right. One more segment before we get into our teaching series tonight. We've had a marathon of segments tonight, and I absolutely love it. In fact, if you want to embarrass yourself at Youth Online, just send me a text and let me know, and I'll be sure your video gets in next week. All right, I'm not even going to introduce what's coming next. Just watch it. It'll absolutely change your life.
Today, we will be training my dogs. Ain't that right? And then, boom, they're right here. Yeah. Okay. Owen, any thoughts on how to do this? How you train the dog?
Yeah, so you're gonna want to get comfortable with them, learn their name.
This is Sadie. This is Rocco.
Okay, that's
We're
step
comfortable.
one. Next step, you're gonna get comfortable with them, not let them bite you.
Bite.
All right,
Nope.
that's good. So next, you're gonna learn the language of the dog.
What's the language of the dog?
You don't know the language of the dog?
I don't know the language of the dog.
Ah. I don't know how to train
Can
a
you
dog.
teach me?
So
Can you
first,
teach me the language?
you're gonna wanna like pretend to have a treat in your hand, and then
Okay.
like make them roll over.
Sadie, I got a treat. Roll. Boom. You did it. It's a roll. Whoa. How did she do that? Boom. Roll. She's on her stomach now. Rocco. Roll. See? Roll. Treat, buddy. Got a treat in my hand. Roll. Then it's a bam. He rolled. See? See how well my dogs are trained?
All right. That's awesome.
Anything else we should teach them today?
Do they know how to go to the washroom outside?
Yes, they do.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Owen, for helping me teach my dogs.
And there you go. That's all you need to know about how to train your dog. If you don't have a dog, well, just pass along all that helpful information to someone who does have a dog. You'll be doing them a favor. All right. Well, we are going to switch gears a little bit and move into our teaching series. It's a 4-week series titled Vibes, and we are going to be talking about some moods and some emotions and all the feels that comes along with dealing, well, with everything and everyone in our lives. And while there's nothing wrong with feeling all the feels, the problem comes when we let these passing vibes become the motivators of our mood and our actions. And so that's why in this series, we're gonna have a conversation and do a deep dive into some of the feelings we feel. Things like fear and anger and guilt. And we're gonna talk about the way they inspire our behavior. And my hope, my prayer, is that we can figure out what we can do to control our vibes instead of letting them control us. Today, in week 3 of our series, we're going to be talking about an emotion that I think every single person on the planet has experienced, and that emotion is fear. So let's check out week 3 of our series titled Vibes. all throughout my childhood and even into a little bit of high school, I had this massive, crippling fear. It was the fear, it was a fear that kept me up at night. It would give me nightmares. I would wake up to my own screaming as they terrorized my dreams. No matter where I went, it consumed my thoughts. The thought of seeing one would have me tiptoeing around. When I would visit friends and have sleepovers, I would have to mentally prepare myself and give myself a pep talk. And the worst part was the thing I was afraid of. It was everywhere. Every time I would go outside, I would see one. They'd always run up to me and they'd want to be pet. And they'd jump up and they'd lick my face. It was awful. It was the worst. Most of all, my extended family, they had them in their houses. So every family gathering was terrifying. Now, what was my massive crippling fear? What was I afraid of? Dogs. You see, my very first memory of a dog was when my brothers and I were super young and we were at my grandparents' house and they had a massive German Shepherd. And on that day, my very first memory of a dog, both of my brothers were bitten by this German Shepherd. So, of course, my only thought was, stay away from these four-legged creatures, they will try and eat you. You might think that's a little ridiculous, but it was something that I genuinely believed. And you might think this is funny, but what made my dog fear even worse was my other grandparents, they actually had a dog kennel where they bred dogs as a business. So that didn't help my fears one bit. Here's the thing. We're in another week of this series called Vibes. Vibes are like emotions. And the thing about emotions is that all of us experience them in our lives. And sometimes, without us even realizing it, those vibes can end up controlling us in a way that isn't healthy. Whether it's keeping you from hanging out with those people or getting so messed up that you have a lifelong fear of dogs. It happens. We end up being controlled by our vibes. And today I want to talk about one vibe that fights to control us, and that is fear. All of us have experienced fear in some form or another. It's kept us from trying new things. It's hurt our friendships. It's created a script in our mind that convinces us of things that aren't true. The crazy thing about fear is our ability to experience it. It's something that makes us human. Think about it. Our fear comes from the fact that we can gather information and think about the future. As humans, we can wonder, what if? What if this happens? Or what if that happens? And sometimes that can make us afraid. We are where we are today because the human race has been able to accumulate knowledge and build on that knowledge and then project it into the future. That's why we've continued to develop, change, and evolve as a human race. That's how we get better. The same ability that allows us to fear allows us to imagine, have hope, and dream, which are great things. So our ability to gather information and think about the future has two sides. The fear and the hope side. And I think we would all agree that the hope side is awesome. We love imagining, dreaming, and inventing, but then we have the fear side, the side that comes up with all the what ifs. And we all know that the what ifs make us feel a bit crazy. They make our world shrink until our world is pretty much made up of whatever is making us afraid. Think about the last thing you were afraid of. How much of your day was spent thinking and stressing over it? Maybe it's exams. Maybe it's the end of your quadmester. Maybe it's going back to the school in the future with a certain virus. And what does that look like? Or, does he like me? Does she like me? If you're anything like me, it's almost like your whole day. You think about it. You're working through scenarios. You're planning out what to do or say. That's what happens when the fear vibe takes over. Our world gets really small and our world becomes the fear. But here's some good news. Jesus had a lot to say about fear. The problem is we tend to read the verses where he talked about fear just on their own. And when we do that, they sound really, really nice, but they don't seem possible or practical. For example, so many times in scripture, Jesus says, fear not. In other words, when it comes to fear, just stop and quit. Not exactly helpful, right? So today I want to look at a passage where Jesus talks to some of his close friends about fear, but with a little more context. Jesus had 12 main people who followed him around and learned from him. He was their teacher and they were his disciples. They also happened to be his close friends. And at one point, he tells them this in Matthew chapter 10, verse 16. He says, "I'm going to send you out like sheep among wolves." I mean, think about it. Wolves are predators and sheep are prey. So Jesus is like, you guys are prey. And I'm going to let you loose with a bunch of predators. You know, the ones that you usually run away from because they'll want to eat you. And then he gets more literal. He tells them that they'll also be arrested and beaten. And to wrap it up, he tells them, don't be afraid. Sounds easy, right? Well, we tend to read that story and we just stop there. But when you look at it in context, this is just a small part of a bigger story. Jesus took his friends on a field trip before this conversation. And all of this was connected. They were in a boat in the middle of the Sea of Galilee. And while they were there, Matthew, one of Jesus' disciples, said that this happened. It's in Matthew chapter 8. He said, "Suddenly, a furious storm came up on the lake so that the waves swept over the boat." And so Jesus and his disciples, they're on a small boat in the middle of the water, and without warning, a storm shows up. Think about all the noise from the waves, the wind, the rain, the thunder. And they're in the middle of a sea. They're in a tiny little fishing boat. Not exactly a leisurely cruise. And what is Jesus doing in the middle of the crazy storm? He's sleeping. Can you imagine? The disciples were scared out of their minds. Quite frankly, worried about their lives. And their fearless leader was sleeping right through it. So naturally, they wake him up. And so casually, they head over to Jesus and they say this in verse 25. They say, "Lord, save us! We are going to drown." Maybe not as casually as we thought. But the disciples, they're frustrated. They feel alone. And most of all, they're scared, they're terrified. And they want their leader to calm them down. And he's sleeping. So how does Jesus respond? He says this in verse 26. "You of little faith, why are you so afraid?" Maybe because we're all about to die. Maybe that's why we're afraid. I can only imagine their response when Jesus asks this. They had to kind of just stand there, soaked to the bone from the rain, wobbling around by the waves, and they're looking out as their lives are about to end. But Jesus wasn't paying attention to what was around them. He was teaching them something. He was teaching them about fear. So he gets up, but he doesn't panic. And I love this because no matter how scary the circumstances, Jesus stays calm. Then Matthew says that Jesus spoke to the wind and the waves and they calmed down. The disciples were amazed and they responded by saying this in verse 27. What kind of man is this? Even the winds and waves obey him. Then they thought about what they just saw. And this is unbelievable for them. The wind and the waves obey him. Now they weren't just amazed, they were once again afraid. They're like, who is this man who can calm a storm? He has so much power. And he used this power to take care of them. And he wasn't even afraid. But I think this is the exact point of this little field trip that Jesus took them on, to show them that their feelings or fear didn't have to control them or boss them around. To show them that there's someone bigger and more capable of whatever they were afraid of. Let's go back to the conversation where Jesus says that he's going to send them out like sheep among wolves. Jesus follows that up by saying this in Matthew chapter 10, verse 28. He says, "Do not be afraid of those who kill the body but cannot kill your soul." In other words, if you're going to fear something, it might as well make sure it's the right thing. A storm isn't nearly as big as God. In these dangerous situations that Jesus is sending them into, like sheep among wolves, he's saying, don't be afraid because they aren't as big as God. It's like he was saying, hey, remember that boat ride? You were afraid of the wrong thing. Sure, you had all the right in the world to be afraid, but you didn't know that there was someone with you who was more powerful than the storm. Jesus goes on. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet none of them will fall to the ground outside your Father's care. And even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. Jesus is saying God is paying attention to you. Don't be afraid. You're worth more than sparrows. Don't be afraid. God has numbered the hairs on your head. Don't be afraid. He's reminding us and saying you are valuable to him. God is close. He knows your circumstances. He's concerned with what happens in your everyday life, your real life. He cares about what you care about. Now, when it comes to dealing with fear, this is a big deal because God knows all about it and is with you in the middle of it. But Jesus isn't done. He's not done teaching them about fear. They go on another field trip. Jesus, he's been preaching all day. It's starting to get late and the people are getting tired and hungry. And so the disciples suggest that they send everyone home to eat. But Jesus seems to think that they can feed everyone there, which sounds crazy because no one has enough food or money to make that happen. This wasn't a small group of people. Like, we're talking about thousands and thousands of people. So the disciples were afraid once again. How will they make this happen? How can they possibly feed everyone? But then Jesus gets a little boy's lunch. He prays over it, and then Matthew says that Jesus split the lunch between the 12 disciples and told them to feed the crowds. And it worked. Everyone got fed. It was a miracle. But before they had time to stay and enjoy it, Jesus tells the disciples to get in another boat. And they're probably thinking, too soon, Jesus, too soon. Remember what happened last time? But they get in the boat anyway. Except, plot twist, Jesus doesn't get in with them. He tells them that he'll meet them on the other side of the Sea of Galilee. So the disciples spend the night rowing. And at some point in the night, the waves get bigger and the wind blows, and they've got to be thinking, great, here we are, we're about to be in another storm, but this time Jesus isn't with us. And so they look out on the water and they can't believe what they see. It's Jesus, and he's walking on water. Matthew records that the disciples were terrified. In fact, they thought that they saw a ghost. But then Jesus says something that gets their attention because they had heard it before. He says this in Matthew chapter 14, verse 27. He says, "Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." This is Jesus trying to remind them of all the lessons and field trips they've had up to this point. They saw miracles. They heard his teaching, and yet still fear was in control of them. In fact, fear even controlled them after this trip. They remained fearful to the very end of Jesus' life. When we fast forward to the night that Jesus was arrested, we see that the disciples abandoned Jesus. Why? Because they were afraid that if they stayed close by, they too might get arrested. And then Jesus was crucified, and where were they? Where were the disciples? Well, they left because they were afraid. The next day after Jesus was buried, where were the disciples? They were hiding out in a room. Why? Because they were afraid. But then two women who had followed Jesus, they went to the tomb and discovered that it was empty. Jesus wasn't there. So they come back, they told the disciples, and so the disciples went to the tomb, saw that it was empty, and they thought that someone had stolen the body. But then Jesus himself appeared before them, and they realized that he's alive. And here's the big deal. When the guy you've been following dies and then comes back to life, suddenly everything he has said to you before seems to be more real, true, and believable. Suddenly all the times he told them not to be afraid made sense. He could conquer death itself, so he can handle whatever they were afraid of. See, for the disciples who loved and followed Jesus, the resurrection wasn't just a nice surprise. It was everything. It made them bold, gave them strength, and put everything Jesus said about fear in perspective. Their world was still crazy, but because of the resurrection, the disciples and anyone who followed Jesus could put their fear in its place. It was like they finally understood the lesson from the boat, when all the things around them seemed so much bigger and scarier than they could handle. Now, Jesus' words made sense. Fear not, I am with you. It took on a whole new meaning. We know this is true because after the resurrection, the disciples came out of hiding. They didn't run away from the authorities. They started preaching to them. And these followers of Jesus ended up changing the world. Why? Because they started to live as though they believed what Jesus had told them over the course of their time. And what did Jesus tell them? Fear not. They lived afraid of nothing, not even death, because they followed a man who had died and came back to life. All of a sudden, nothing seemed as scary anymore. And not because there was nothing to be afraid of, but because God was clearly bigger than their biggest fears. The thing is, we all know that fear will always be a part of our experience. Fear is part of what makes us human. It will always be there to some degree, but we don't have to live like fear is in charge of us and telling us what to do. There's a guy named Peter who was one of Jesus's closest friends and one of those disciples. He was there with Jesus during the miracles and the boat rides. He made promises to Jesus that he didn't keep. He said he'd never deny knowing Jesus. Then he denied Jesus 3 times. He said he'd stay focused on what Jesus told him was going to happen, but then he panicked when Jesus was arrested. He said he'd always be there for Jesus, but then he hid in fear after Jesus died. But after the resurrection, everything changed. Fear no longer controlled Peter. So he gave some tips about fear in a letter that he writes to Christians who had never had the chance to meet Jesus. And Peter says this. It's in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7. He says, cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. When Peter says cast, he means throw, hurl, heave. These are active and intentional words. It means that it doesn't happen by accident. You got to be active with your fear. When you feel anxious, when you feel fear or worry, take it and throw it to Jesus. Why? Well, this is probably the most important part. Peter experienced this firsthand in the 3 years he spent with Jesus. We throw our fears to him because he cares for us. Maybe you could remember it this way. Because of Jesus, fear doesn't have to be the boss of you. So here's what I want you to do. When fear becomes the vibe that takes over your life and starts to control how you act, I want you to do this. Number 1, name whatever it is that you're afraid of. Just put words around it. Number 2, write it down. If you like to write on paper, pull out your journal. If you're more of a notes person on your phone, type it out. But write something along the lines of, I'm afraid of blank. I'm afraid if that happens, then blank will happen. And put it in words in front of you. What causes you to be so afraid? Number 3, throw that fear to Jesus by writing it down. You can say something along the lines of, Jesus, I am giving you my fear of blank. I'm afraid of all the stuff I wrote before, but those are what ifs situations. Here's what's true. You care for me. And even though it doesn't always feel like it, I'm choosing to believe that you are bigger than any fear I face. Since you defeated death, you can handle my fear. I give it to you. Please replace my fear with confidence in you because I trust you. Number 4, talk to a Connect Group leader about your fear. Your leader is here for you. They want to pray alongside you for your confidence in Jesus to be larger than whatever you're afraid of. When you invite them into your fear, you're inviting in another person who can remind you that whenever you get afraid of what is true. So as we wrap up today, I hope you'll remember that these vibes, these feelings, and these emotions that we have, they don't have to control us, especially fear. They are never meant to make us who we are. They are, however, invitations to pay attention. So while we can learn from our emotions, we need to know that because of Jesus, they don't have to be the boss of us. And so this week, as you meet online in your Connect group, let's be bold and courageous enough to share the fears that we face. Together, we can help each other fear not.
You can see the picture. Okay. Oh, and next we're pretending to be Ethan. Okay, it's the last one we have to do.
I don't know how Ethan acts. Hey guys, this is Ethan.
Hey guys, Ethan here. It's gonna be me and other Ethan. We're gonna be doing this segment. Oh, well, let's start with the expectations. Name them, Ethan.
So, first up, guys, like Point Fam. First up, we're gonna be doing focus on when Ethan number 1 is talking. You don't want to be talking or looking on your phone devices. Yeah.
Nope. Second,
No.
respect. You know what respect is? Don't want to be hitting nobody else. Don't hit yourself. Or don't hit other people if you don't want to be hit. Like ka-chow. See that? Other Ethan. Third one.
Yeah, that.
Third expectation.
Wait.
It's engage.
Engage. Engage in the activities in the chat below. You're gonna wanna pick who's the better Ethan, number 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I'm number 2.
It's me. I'm even wearing Ethan's black. I'm wearing my black shirt, you mean? Because we're Ethan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And last but not least, discern.
That's Remy.
Discern when it's the right time to talk and when it's the right time to listen. Pretty straightforward, right? Here's a hint. If you're talking during the explanation of this expectation, not getting the point. And boom, you're getting booted from the chat. So as I'm explaining this, you should not be writing in the chat. Okay? Message from Ethan. Ethan approved.
That is right.
Cricket gang.
Cricket game.
And scene.
Okay.
Adios, Lolo.
Adios, Niccolo. Hey, I should call you that. Oh, he left. Okay.